funny. And the other person could have, let's say, a red mark or a scratch. How is everyone doing today? Welcome to The Problem Solver. I am David Kohlmeyer, the Problem Solver, a retired police officer here to help you with problems. Today, I'm introducing a special guest. I am having today Edward Bevilacqua. Bevilacqua from Novum. Edward, thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about what we do.
Well, I appreciate you coming here because I think that you are doing a great service in the community, and it may be a little bit awkward to talk about to some people in general of what you're doing. But basically, I think it's something that, it's something that should be more acceptable. And I wanted to have you on the show to talk about what exactly you do and how you help people. And I know this is something that it can be, people can use your resources and your nonprofit to get help. And across the United States of America, people can come here to Las Vegas, and your program can help them. So I thought this was a great thing that you're doing, and I wanted you to basically come on the show and talk about it. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Myself personally?
Yeah, where you're from?
Well, I'm from the Bay Area.
Okay.
Grew up born in Oakland, raised in Pleasanton, went to school in the Bay Area, and then I got a law degree down in San Diego before moving to Las Vegas 11 years ago.
Well, welcome, 11 years later.
Yeah, love it.
So you went to law school. I mean, do you want to give a little bit of your background information? What would you like to share in regards to you? And then basically we could jump into like Novum, the program, how it came about. What would you like to share?
Well, I think, what I think most people would be interested in is who are you and why should we care?
Sounds good.
Okay. And so what we focus on is we are a school that helps people who are in prison and more importantly, when they get out of prison. We have two goals. One is to get people out of prison, and the second goal is to keep them from going back to prison.
Okay.
And we're very unique in the country in that it's generally you either have programs that are for people who are in prison or people who are out of prison. They don't transcend. They don't start when they're in prison and then get them out or help them when they get out of prison. And the problem with that approach is, going back to prison is called recidivism. But recidivism isn't a problem when you're in prison, right? It's only a problem when you get out of prison because you're already in prison. So we focus on helping people when they are in prison and when they're out of prison. We help about 1,000 people per year who get out of prison. Currently, we have 800 active students who are in prison. So we have our magazine. Where would I show this? Up here? So this is our magazine that we publish and distribute to all of the prisons and camps in Nevada, plus Arizona, some in Arizona, some in Colorado, some in Florida, some in Hawaii, some in Illinois, some in Michigan, and some in Oklahoma. And people learn, they take our correspondence course, and then we invite the people to continue with our program when they get out of prison. And we're unique in that we provide all of the things that people need when they get out of prison. We provide it directly.
So once you get out of prison, you basically need a place to go, housing.
Right.
A job.
Yep.
If you need counseling.
Yep.
What else am I missing? I mean, basically, if you're starting fresh, right? You're coming out of prison, you need a place to stay. You need clothing. You need everything. Especially if you don't have a support system.
In Nevada, people get out of prison and they're wearing their prison clothes. I was in prison in California, and you get out of prison in clothes. You can have clothes sent in, and then you get out. You
can walk out with regular clothes.
Yeah. But here you get out in your regular prison clothes. So you're walking down the streets of Las Vegas wearing your prison blues, except, they don't allow people in prison to have belts. So you generally have a string wrapped around your waist or a cord or something you made, and it's pretty sad.
I did drive by, I think it was like Bonanza. Where's the location where they get released?
Bonanza near Las Vegas Boulevard.
And I happened to see a guy, and he was wearing the orange and like blue jeans or something, and he was holding his pants up because he has no belt.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt it was kind of very savage, like that they just released somebody And he was walking around kind of aimlessly, and I kind of felt bad. But it was a weird situation. But he was walking, he's holding his pants up, and he just really didn't know where really to go. And then basically we kind of walked back, and I think it's like Department of Parole and Probation, that location.
Right.
So technically, if someone doesn't have a support system, they're just released into let's say into the woods, into the wild.
Yeah. Well, prison is fundamentally a soul-crushing experience. It's mostly boring, punctuated by periods of really intense emotion, like fear, typically. And then when you get out, you're totally unprepared for the world. And, you're wearing your prison clothes, and holding up your pants, carrying a plastic bag over your shoulder, and it's welcome to the world. So what we do is we pick people up right from parole and probation. We get them something to eat. We bring them to the classroom, and then we kind of get them signed in and oriented and take them to go get clothes and give them a cell phone and food and hygiene. And, so you're talking about what are the things that people need when they get out of prison? Yeah, housing. So we supply housing. You said counseling, job. People also need hygiene, because again, you're just coming out of prison with what you had, and there's kind of a tradition to leave your stuff behind, for somebody else in prison. So you're not taking your TV and whatever.
You leave the stuff behind for the people
It's
that
a
need it.
tradition, but not everybody does it. I mean, some people carry their TV because they paid for it, so it's mine. I want it, but
Can you have Can you are you allowed a TV inside the prison cell?
Yeah,
I really didn't know that.
Yeah.
I haven't been in prison in a while.
yeah, they're not cheap.
So you could have a TV inside the prison, so
Yeah.
you can watch TV in your cell.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. Well, it keeps
Has it always been that way? Because you always watch these movies. I don't really.
I don't know in Nevada. I don't know. I'm not from here.
Got it.
So, but you can have a TV now, and it's not cheap. It's like $150 for a 14-inch TV.
Okay.
But so prison is a soul-crushing experience, and then you get released if you're lucky. Another challenge in Nevada is in order to get released from prison, you have to have an approved plan. So you submit a plan to say, here's where I'm going to go. Whereas in California and most other states, when it's your time to be released, you don't get to say, I'm not ready. Can I stay for another week? It's like, no, you're out. You got to go. In Nevada, the legislators decided, why would we want to release somebody who doesn't have a job, doesn't have any support, doesn't have any money, isn't well educated, doesn't have a work history, has been in prison a long time? Why would we want to release that person? We're just setting him up to fail. So since this person is not qualified or able to be released, we're going to leave him in prison. And that sounds logical and reasonable unless you were eligible to parole, say, a year ago or 2 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and they're keeping you in prison simply because you don't have a place to go. And those are the people we really cater to. That's our people, is we're not trying to get the lawyers, doctors, the people who were high performing that have a great support system. We don't go for those people. We really get the people who could not get out of prison but for the services we provide, and they're highly likely to go back to prison unless they get a lot of help.
Quick question. I always get this confused. So there's a number, like how many people in the state of Nevada that basically are in prison, if they could be released, but they don't have a place to go, they just stay there. What do you call it? Expiring? Explain that again. I always get confused.
Okay, so in Nevada and in most states, you go to court, you lose, right? All people go to prison lost in court or they made a deal. And you have a period of time that you must do, and then you become eligible for what's called parole, which means you're technically still in prison, but we're going to let you outside. And we're going to watch you. We're going to make sure things
Eligible
are good.
for parole, allowing to be watched outside.
Yeah.
And you have to behave. If not, you can go back.
Correct. And but then there's a period where you're on parole, but that ends. And in Nevada, it's called when you expire your prison term. Some people stay in prison all the way through. They don't go out on parole because they
You have to get approved, right?
Because they don't. Yeah, they have to have an approved parole plan.
So you only can basically be paroled if you have a place to go to. Approved location.
approved plan. Yeah.
So you can get out, like, how much earlier can you get out of prison?
Well, in the sentencing, it says, okay, you must do X number of months or X number of years. Then you're eligible for parole, and you go to the parole board, which in the last year is kind of a Zoom thing. You go to the parole board, and the parole board decides we're going to let you parole or not parole.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a long prison term, typically the first time you're eligible for parole, they'll say no.
First time.
Yeah. And
Statistically, like, first time, they always deny you.
depends how long the sentence is. So if you
Okay.
had a 20-year sentence and you're eligible for parole after 10, they probably will deny it.
And then every year you can request
I think
parole?
again, it depends upon the charge, what you're there for.
Yeah.
And every so often you get to be eligible for parole, but they don't let you out unless you have an approved plan.
Got it.
So you can expire, but if you have life on parole, let's say you had first-degree murder and you did 25 years, but you have life on parole. So what does that mean in terms of getting out? Well, that means if you don't have a approved plan, you die in prison. They don't let you out because
So you're just staying in prison because you have no approved plan,
Correct. Yeah.
and you
It's
just stay
pretty
there
bad.
forever.
It's pretty bad.
So even if you did your time, right? You can't, if you just have no support system or a program, Novum, which we'll get more in detail. So if Novum didn't exist, people could just stay in prison forever
People have stayed in prison forever.
until they die
Yeah.
because there's nowhere for them to go. They have no friends, family, support system, money.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, if you've been in prison for 40 years, you probably don't really have any friends on the outside, right? Your family's dead.
But you could be sitting in prison for another 20, 30 years until you die.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also the taxpayers are paying for this as well.
Correct. And again, the legislators and the other side would say, why would we let somebody out of prison who's been in for 40 years? We have 3 people who went to prison before there were cell phones, cable TV, CDs. So they get out of prison. Hey, here's your cell phone.
What's a CD?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because they've been in jail for like 40 years.
Yeah.
So they went in, maybe they were 20 and now they're 60 and they're out.
Yeah. They know what a cell phone is
Mm-hmm.
because they've seen it on their TV, right? But they haven't actually held a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how it works. And it's pretty sad. You know, you hand a 70-year-old guy a cell phone. Why are you laughing? This is a serious matter.
It's a kind of it's a very sad situation. But imagine giving someone an iPhone. I give it to my dad. He's 75 years old. You know, it's like, you know, for my child who's 2.5, he knows how to turn things around and find things and go to YouTube and
Exactly.
he can find Chuck E. Cheese. But I can imagine, right? You're in jail 40 years, give someone a phone, they're like clueless. It's like
They're
it's like
clueless.
sci-fi.
And it's information overload. It's like, I don't even know how to start. And you say, well, you just do this. Okay. And 5 minutes later, they say, okay, how do I make a phone call again? How do I get back to this? And then it always ends up as the phone is broken, right? That's the thing. The phone doesn't work. And, you know, it's kind of funny, but it's really actually very sad, right?
I remember my mother back in the day when we had like the VCR, and she would write down instructions like press play, press stop, you know, and I would say you can't just, you know, write it down because things can change. What happens if, you know, the TV's not on? Or there's so many different possibilities, right?
Absolutely.
So I can imagine I would get frustrated just telling my mother how to work a VCR, you know, turning it on and off. So basically, long story short, you're helping them when they get out for all these different things. Basically, they need help. I just always thought it was crazy that I don't think the average person knows that people that are expiring or parole, they're just staying there, and then of course the taxpayers' money, which it has to be cheaper to try to get someone out and try to help them be, you know, a human being in society. I'm sure it costs. I mean, do you know the numbers? Like, what does it cost per person to incarcerate? Isn't it like 30, 40 grand?
Well,
60
I
grand?
think in Nevada, the number is skewed very low. Like it's like 20,000 or, you know, $2.50. But in California, it's like $60,000. There's
Like
more
food,
money.
medical.
More money is spent incarcerating people in prison than educating people in California.
Mm-hmm.
There are some European models where the idea is we're going to pay somebody half of your salary or your salary or something. If you'll hire somebody out of prison, we'll pay a salary.
Because they're saving money.
Yeah, it's an incentive for an employer to hire people who came out of prison.
Mm-hmm. No, you think about all those people, you could save a lot of money in regards to taxpayers, in general. All right, so the magazine that you have here says "Rest Just Stay." What does that exactly mean?
That is a Latin term. It's a legal term. We use it because for the Romans, it was their word for history, meaning things done. Literally means things done. And our education program is based upon people writing things down, remembering things. So on their composition book, everybody has to write res gesti, things done. And that's kind of a mental hack. So for example, if I had a composition book and in big bold letters I had written on it res gesti, what might you say to me? If you didn't know what it was, what might you say? What's that?
What is it?
Yeah, you'd say, what's that? What is that? I'd say, it's Latin. And then what would you say? I'd say, it's Latin.
And what does it translate to?
Okay, but what if I say it's Latin? What do you think of me?
You're a very intelligent person.
Yeah, you say, I say it's Latin. You say, well, what does it mean? Or you might say, do you speak Latin? And I say, a little, because we all do speak a little Latin, right?
Okay.
I say, yeah, it's Latin. You speak Latin? A little. And so then you think I'm what? Smart.
Intelligent.
Yeah. And so we put that on, have everybody write on their book to demonstrate the first law of power, the actual law of power, which is power perceived is power achieved. If you think I'm smart, guess what? I'm smart.
Must be. Okay, so the magazine Rest Just Stay here in front of me, it says the National Magazine for Inmates and Ex-Felons Who Want to Leave Prison Behind for Good. And then it has the different states around here. It says Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Hawaii, Illinois, Michigan, Nevada, Oklahoma. So the magazine, are you working in these different states where people are coming here?
Yes. So we have our housing and the services we provide here, but it turns out there are a lot of people in other states, especially people who've gone back to prison many, many times. The problem is they know too many bad people, bad places, bad things where they come from, and it would be like, hey, you can go have a fresh start. So let's say you're in prison in New York, and you had gone to prison many times, and you got out, and it was like, what's going to be different this time? And somebody says, well, why don't you go to Texas? You'd say, I'd love to go to Texas, but I don't know anybody in Texas. I can't just get on a bus and go to Texas and start. And so the idea for people in these other states is this is an opportunity to have a fresh start in Nevada.
Okay. So even though there's certain states here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 8 states, would you accept other people from other states too?
Yes.
Okay. So anywhere in the United States, if you basically expire from prison and you're looking for a program to help, you don't really have a support system, or even if you have a support system, you want to just start fresh, like you mentioned, and I think we can get involved, we can talk about the names of the programs, but people can come out here to Las Vegas. Do you provide transportation? How do you work that out?
We can. It turns out that there are a lot of families, it's kind of the norm. I want to help my kid, but I know that I can't have them come back to my house. And so I will pay for them to go somewhere else.
A program or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of times it's easier for people to get transportation or to come into the program, even from another state. So,
right.
Are there other programs nationwide? Are you the only program that basically does helping people that expire from prison? Well, here the program would be that they come to Las Vegas. So maybe there's some local programs in every state, but are you the only nationwide program that you're accepting people from all over the U.S.?
There's 1 million programs around the country that do a little thing, do a thing or a couple things, maybe 3 things. There's no other program that does all of the things. And our basic idea is if you don't do all of the things, the thing that you don't do is the thing that's going to kill you. It's the thing that's going to destroy the program, make it not successful. So there are some programs that do everything, but they're small. There's a great program in Salt Lake City, but it's only for 200 people. And it's a 2-year program, and they get people out of prison and jail, and they provide housing and clothing. They also own businesses, so you come to work in our business is how they do it. The Other Side Academy, really good people. But our program is designed to be a national program. and it's also a financially sustainable program. We're not a nonprofit, we're a business. And so when you're a business, you have to provide a product that people are willing to pay for. Otherwise, you can have a really nice little local thing that the community will make donations to keep the program going, and that's a good and important thing. We just have a different model. Our model is to make an actual impact, because if you look at recidivism, it's not changing. Every program in the country, there's little programs that might be successful, but if you look at the national number, recidivism is not going down. Even when they change the laws to reduce it, people are not committing crimes. And only 4% of people die in prison. So you could have less people going to prison every year and people getting out, but the number of people who've been to prison, that number keeps going up. And today, the statistic is that 3 out of 4 people who've been to prison will be rearrested. That number is not changing. That's the problem that we're trying to go after on a national basis, not on a little local basis. So there's a lot of little local companies that do mostly everything. There's a lot of other companies that do some things, but there's nobody that's really trying to have a major impact on reducing recidivism around the country, and that's a big problem. That's a problem that everybody should want to solve.
Absolutely. Over a year ago, I started the Problem Solver podcast and show because I wanted to basically help make a difference, and I felt by me being a retired police officer, I was very big with community policing and crime prevention, and I really do like criminal defense kind of crime prevention programs to prevent recidivism. So we mentioned 3 out of 4 people are going back to prison. It's kind of a sad situation because we want to basically, we're all human beings. I mean, whether it's education or guidance or self-improvement or mentorship, I mean, people basically need help. And I think that we need to have these different programs to basically help people not go back to prison. So, I mean, I commend you for what you're doing and working on. And the whole point of the Problem Solver Show is for me to basically help people with different people like yourselves that have different programs. I want to share that, with the community. And, this will go, nationwide through all the Facebook, groups that are, people that are inmates and pen pals and all these different programs. So my goal is to help. So nationwide throughout the United States, basically, I mean, you definitely are a source of a program that basically can help people so we can prevent that 3 out of 4 people going back to prison. So, I mean, I think it's great what you're doing in general. So the magazine itself, this goes into right now into the local prisons in the state of Nevada, right?
All prisons and camps in Nevada.
Prisons and camps in the state.
Yeah.
Does it go right now? Is it going to any other states?
Yeah, the states that are on the outside.
Okay, so the magazine goes into all the other states right now, these current states, and you're expanding to other states as well.
Correct.
So inside the magazine, I noticed there's housing opportunities, a lot of different people that you have that are, political people and community activists that are writing different articles and stuff like that. Share a little bit about the different in the publication you have here. Talk a little bit about the people that are sharing different articles or self-improvement or doctors, or you even have a local senator.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about the people that are basically sharing in here. I see we have Senator Dr. Carrie Ann Buck here as well.
Right. So, well, let me just take a step back to talk about our approach. So again, as you said, on the masthead, it says this is the national magazine for inmates and ex-felons who want to leave prison behind for good. And what we're mainly unique about is we're really a school. So we help people learn the skills they need to get the jobs that are going to keep them from doing the things that got them in prison. Our approach is that all of the studies are pretty consistent on what stops people going back to prison, what reduces recidivism. The second best thing to reduce recidivism is a job that you're passionate about. It's stable, meaningful, livable wage that you look forward to doing every day, kind of like you do with the defenders or the problem solver. So that's the second best way to keep people from going back to prison. What do you think?
A meaningful job, something that they feel good about.
Yeah, that they want to go to work for.
So they can wake up every day knowing that it's meaningful what they're doing.
Yeah, what do you think number one is? The number one best way to not go back to prison?
Don't commit a crime.
No, death.
Death.
Yeah, because they haven't figured out how to put dead people back in prison.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the number two way, the number two way is to have people get jobs that are stable, meaningful, and livable wage.
Mm-hmm.
Most people think that the obstacle to that job is prison. I can't get a job because I went to prison, people won't hire me. False. The reason people don't get the jobs is because they're not qualified for the jobs. So let's just say you're a 40-year-old guy that did 8 years in prison, and before that you didn't have a meaningful career at all. When you get out of prison, you've been out of the game for 8 years, what kind of job are you going to get? I've got a job that was as good as the job that wasn't good enough before. You're not even going to get a job that wasn't as good as the job that wasn't good enough. So the solution is you have to go to school to learn new skills. That's our fundamental thing. So the purpose of the magazine is to plant a seed in people that it's not too late to learn the things you need to learn. And the articles that are in the magazine are by people who are really good at what they do. They're professional people who care, and showing people little baby steps on, yeah, you can do this. And so we have a correspondence school, like I said at the beginning, that has over 800 active inmates, which is almost 8% of the people in prison in Nevada. Mm-hmm. And on page 41, it has the homework for the month. So the basic idea is you read the stories that the people wrote, then you have to do 150 to 250 word essay on what the story was about. So what does that do? That ties the inmate into the people who write the articles in the magazine, and they have to think about them, ponder them, digest them. They have to be able to articulate something. And it's not really easy for people, but it's a lot of fun, and people take a great deal of pride in it. We get about 50 homework assignments back, and it's really amazing how much energy people will put into doing the homework. So the idea is we have really good writers who write about things that are important to people on a level that those people can understand, and then we ask the people who read the magazine to write about the stories that are in the magazine and get them the belief that, you know what, I can do this. I can actually learn stuff that's important. So it's not like other magazines, you just read a story and say, yeah, that was cool, or you watch TV and say, yeah, that was cool, or that sucked. Here you have to read it, ponder it, get it, reply back, and then our goal is when it's your time to leave, continue in our program because you've had a little taste of what it's like. And the next level, we're going to provide all of the things that you need, the clothing, food, hygiene, housing, transportation, getting you your ID. If you need mental health or substance abuse counseling, we'll do that. 3 hours of school every day, 5 days a week. Then we have employers that will hire you because they're more interested in your future than your past. Mm-hmm. And then after that, then you proceed to the next level of your life. And one of the things is to buy a home. And then we need a real estate agent for that. Oh, wait, we have one, Camelia Kohlmeyer. So the idea is for people to be out for a year, buy a home. The mortgage on the home is $700 a month. And that includes property taxes and insurance. Now what? That's the American dream, right? What's the American dream? Owning a house. What happens when you own a house? You have something to lose. What happens when you have something to lose? You keep going to work. Mm-hmm. And you become a responsible, productive member of society. So
by having housing, job, all the things that basically normal people would want.
If you have a house, now all of a sudden the job doesn't have to be as good, right? Because some days maybe I don't like my job, but you know what? I don't want to lose my house because this is my house. And it also separates me from everybody I know that I went to prison with because what do they not have? Most of them don't own a house. And so this is just our approach to it, and it starts with education.
Tell me, I think this is great, actually. I saw this in the magazine, basically, where it shows your new location. Tell us about the new school location and also about the housing close by. I think this is a great picture, which basically shows the Vegas background, the Strip. So if people that want to move to Vegas, if they're from another state, basically they're very close to the Strip in general, and basically this housing in the school. Tell us a little bit about the new location for the school and the housing situation.
Okay, about 3 months ago, we moved to our new location, which is about 6 blocks from the Stratosphere. So anybody that knows Las Vegas, gets to Las Vegas, sees Las Vegas on TV or the movies, the Stratosphere is always there. It's between the Strip hotels in downtown, and it's very close to Sahara Avenue. We're at 734 East Sahara Avenue, so we're walking distance to Las Vegas Boulevard. And we have let's see, I don't know how big the office is, but we have 2 classrooms, 7 offices, private offices in there, group rooms, little kitchen. And the classroom is 3 blocks away from our housing. So our students can walk to school in the morning. It also enables us to have the school available for students from basically 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. So if you have a job, if you've gotten to the level in our program where you are actually employed, you can go to work and then come to the classroom and do your studying.
Got it. So again, so Stratosphere, east of the Stratosphere, basically is on Sahara at 734 East Sahara, 7 blocks Las Vegas Boulevard, basically 3 blocks to housing. So basically, it is a school where basically housing is close. If you have to work from housing and get a job and go to school, it's convenient and centrally located, which is great, especially if someone's coming from another state that doesn't know the area. Everything's kind of centrally located for them. I mean, technically, whether you could take a bus, right? Do a lot of people take the bus?
What, from housing to school?
Yeah. No, I'm actually if they get a job. Because sometimes people are worried, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're in the suburbs, you have to go to work. I mean, everything's centrally located in general. So to go to school and work shouldn't be a problem, especially if you don't have a car. You just came out of prison, right?
Correct. That's absolutely correct. And some of our employers, in fact, 7-Eleven, one of the benefits that they will give people is they'll give them a 2-week or a 30-day bus pass.
Okay.
And
so they'll help with transportation just to get to work.
Huge amount of freedom.
It says 4 blocks to the gym. People using the gym as well?
Some.
Okay.
Yeah. So
the bottom line is shopping, restaurants. I mean, the truth is you're in Las Vegas. Even if you have a past, you're going to start fresh. Tell us, again, the names. You have some different programs that are going on right now, right? I mean, things have changed, I think, from your past. What are the names of the programs, and tell us about the programs?
Okay, so we have programs for people that are in prison in Nevada and programs for people in prison not in Nevada.
Okay.
So the current program for people in Nevada is called Next Step. And Next Step is designed to provide you all of the tools that you need for the next step of your life. So that's where we said housing, counseling, hygiene, food, clothing, smartphone, bus pass ID, education and employment, etc.
Okay.
All the things that you're going to need, not what that you should have, but these are things that you need. You can't get a job in Nevada if you don't have ID, right? You can't get a job in a lot of places unless you have a health card. You can't work without a cell phone. Just today, you will not get hired. You have to have housing. You can't really have a sustainable job if you're couch surfing at night. So all of the things that people need to become successful when they get out of prison, we supply. That's what Next Step is.
Okay.
And it includes getting people their stimulus checks while they're in prison. It includes making sure that they have their Medicaid set up for when they get out and preparing them to get their rent vouchers and things like that when they get out. All of the things that people need. And again, these are people coming out of a soul-crushing environment, and our people are the people who don't have a support network. So they're really on their own. So just imagine a guy gets out of prison, he's staying in a hotel for 2 weeks, and he's got to do all of this on his own. Really, really hard. So we supply that. So the program for people inside of Nevada is called Next Step. The program for people outside of Nevada is called Nut Rack.
Nut Rack.
No, it's not called Nut Rack. It's called New Track.
All right, New Track.
I just wanted to see if you were paying attention. So,
I think you mentioned Nut Rack before.
Yeah. Well, originally,
I like them.
when we came up with New Track, we decided we were going to be too clever by half, and we were going to spell it NU Track for Novum U, right? New Track. But when you put it in writing, so that's kind of clever, right? New Track, NU Track. But when you put it in the magazine, so the ad in here is, on page, I think, 8. But when you do it in the magazine,
It just looks better when it says new track.
well, yeah, you get it. If it was NU track, it would be nut rack. And
The marketing
our
brand.
hypocrisy knows certain bounds, I guess. So new track is for people who are outside of Nevada that want to have a fresh start. So it's basically get to Nevada, we'll help you get here, just get here. And we'll provide everything you need to move forward in your life.
So just looking at the magazine, it says new track, getting out of prison between now and August, looking for a fresh start, come to Las Vegas. And then basically what it says is housing, clothing, hygiene, food, T-Mobile smartphone, job skills, training, employment, transportation to Vegas. And this says your best for a new life. So basically you're totally helping people prepare for the next step of their life if they've come out of prison, specifically in the state of this program, the new track, is for the people that are out of state.
Yeah.
Out of state, okay.
Yeah.
For new track, okay. And then, but the same things you're giving with the next step program as well, right?
Correct.
What's I guess, is there any difference?
Well, when you're coming from a different state and you need to get Nevada ID, it's different than if you are from here and you need to have your ID renewed.
But basically the program is the same in regards to getting them preparation, getting them help.
It's fundamentally exactly the same, and the idea is to not go back to prison, you have to have a job that's stable, meaningful, and has a livable wage.
Got it.
You should be passionate about that, but the reason you're not going to get that job is because you don't have the marketable skills needed to get that job. And so you need to learn those skills. In order to learn those skills, though, you have to have a place to live. It doesn't work. We've been doing this for a long, long time. And if we don't provide housing, people don't come to school. And you can't kind of come to school. It can't be like, I was going to come to school, but I ate something last night I didn't really feel like eating, and I'm going to come tomorrow. Learning doesn't happen that way. That would be like saying I'm going to go to the gym and get in shape, but I'm only going to go once every 2 weeks. So you have to provide housing. Well, when people come out of prison, they don't have clothes. You have to give them clothes, and then you have to give them hygiene. You have to give them food, and it ends up you have to do everything. But really what you want to do is just give people a job that is stable, meaningful, and livable wage. All of that other stuff is what it takes to be able to do that, and that's what makes us unique.
Especially for people maybe listening, they're involved in businesses as well. What businesses right now, in some regards, I was about to say to give like a shout out to some of the businesses that are supporting people that basically like a kind of a second chance program. What places do you deal with locally that are helping out by providing employment for people that need a job, that have a little bit of a past?
Yeah, okay, so that's a really good question on sort of a different level, Dave. One thing that we don't do is we don't get people manual labor job careers, like say flagger. A lot of people are attracted to becoming a flagger because they say, oh, it's good money, it's $15 an hour, and you just have to stand there. It's not, but we don't do that, because what happens when you're a flagger and you're 70 years old? You're not going to be a flagger at 70 years old.
Why not?
Because they're not going to hire somebody who's 75 years old, 70 years old to be a flagger. They're going to hire somebody who's younger because you could get injured, right?
So you want to give them more of a skill set job?
So the idea is we have to teach you how to use your brain.
Okay.
You're not a pack animal, manual labor person anymore. And we have people that, let's say before they went to prison, they worked in plumbing. They weren't a plumber. We don't have people who are plumbers, but we have people who maybe carried the pipes for plumbers, and maybe in prison they were a plumber, which meant they cleared clogged drains and toilets and things like that. And it's kind of like, I could be a plumber. And so we have people who have had careers in that business, but now they're really, 60 years old, 55 years old, 40 years old. They've been out of the game for a while. And a lot of people would say, well, I'm in the plumbing business, or I'm in the tile business, and this guy used to do tile, but why would I want to hire somebody who came out of prison who hasn't done tile for a while?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer would be, well, I can do more than lay tile. You have other people here that only know how to do tile. I know how to do things on the internet. I can help with customer service. I can help with bidding. I can help with estimating. I can help with marketing. There's a lot of things that I can do that other people who are just tile setters can't do. And so that's the approach we have. It's kind of like, it's not what you have the physical skills to do, but it's also more important with what do you bring to the table mentally.
Got it.
And
You want to challenge people mentally because, again, as you get older, you want to be able to have a skill set, to be intelligent, not just using your physical body. Because eventually, as you get older, we all get older, we can't, be at that same physical stamina, So
right.
by using your brain and having intelligence, especially when technology changes as well. So I think it's important to have skill sets. So you are training them at a higher level, though. Some of the jobs in the beginning, they may have just a starter job.
Right. So the first job we get people, we call a foundational job. And we say first job is worst job. And that doesn't mean the job is bad. It just means the next job is better. And the job after that is better. If you have that outlook. So it's like, I want to get a job. And so our foundational job serves three purposes. One, it closes the gap on your resume. So you're not going to the job you want to get, having to explain
Where you've
this
been
5-year gap
Yeah.
or this 20-year gap in your thing. It's like, no, I'm employed right now. I'm in school. I'm employed. I'm moving forward in my career. So it closes the gap, the work history gap on your resume. The second thing our foundational job is, it gives you practice to be an employee. Because you haven't been an employee for a long time, right? And you shouldn't be expected to be a great employee right out of the gate just because, I was in prison and I really, really, really want this job. Well, I'm not used to dealing with real normal people, right? I'm used to dealing with a particular type of people that are in prison, and it's, you don't have, it's kind of like everybody in prison is the same, even though they're very different. And the third thing the foundational job is, it gives people a little bit of money. So they've got some spending money, not a lot of money, because if you give them too much money and they're not prepared, bad things happen. They just lose their money type of thing. So we start with getting people a foundational job, and then over the next 30 days, 60 days, we help them figure out what is the thing you're passionate about doing. What do you really want to do for your life? What could you see yourself doing day after day for the rest of your career? And for a lot of people, it's really hard. They never thought about it. They grew up in a family where, let's say, their dad had some kind of labor job, or maybe they didn't even have a dad. And their mother had an office job, or she worked in retail or something. So they didn't really have a good frame of reference. And a lot of people who grew up having dads that didn't have great jobs, the dad would come home from work, and so you get the idea, work sucks. I do work because I have to do work. Where successful people don't say work sucks, they enjoy doing it. So, so we have to retrain people about what is the concept of the job. And then so the next 60 days we work on them with, what would you really like to do? What could you see yourself doing? And like I said, for some people that's a really hard question, and they'll say, well, I want to drive a forklift. We say, well, why would you want to drive a forklift? And it generally comes back to, it's good money. Really? That's good money? Not really. But the other problem with forklift drivers is what? What's the other problem with being a forklift driver?
It's only if there's construction work at the time, or
well,
it's
yeah,
economy.
It's that. But they're coming out with self-driving cars. So how long are forklifts?
Good
people
point.
drive forklifts going to? Does Amazon have a lot of forklifts at their 1 million square foot warehouses? No, they don't have a lot of forklifts there. They're automating everything.
Good point.
So nobody wants to be a guy driving a horse-drawn beer wagon, right? When trucks come out.
So with technology changing, it's kind of a outdated job.
So we steer people away from jobs that are purely physical without any mental, and we steer people away from jobs that are going to become obsolete. And
Very
we
good
try
points.
to get people into jobs that are going to have a future. And so there's a couple really great jobs that we try to, or fields that we try to direct people into. And they're kind of Elon Musk things. So like the Boring Company, which is here in Las Vegas, right? Have you heard of them?
Mm-hmm.
It's not really exciting.
Kind of a boring company.
It's very boring, yeah. So, but the Elon Musk idea is that having tunnels for transportation is a great thing. And they're doing it at the convention center right now, right? And so why not, if you really want to get in the construction business, why not work for the boring company? And then the second one that's really exciting is the Hyperloop. Have you heard of that?
The Hyperloop in Vegas?
Well, what the Hyperloop is?
I just know about the tunnel that's underneath, right, the convention center.
Okay, so that's the boring company, but the Hyperloop is it's not a train, it's a pod, but it's a pod in a tube. So this is a train, not a train, a pod that can travel at about 600 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go from Las Vegas to Los Angeles in 30 minutes for $30. So that's kind of like the future. And it also could be really expanded into the future, because when they build the Hyperloop tubes, there's actually like 3 tubes. So you have one tube going this way, one tube going that way, and then there's a smaller tube underneath. And that tube
It's a pod that goes through, right?
There's a pod that goes through that might hold 12 to 20 people. And it just shoots through at high speed, and there's very little friction. But the third tube is the interesting one, because that can carry power and water. So if you have a tube that can carry power and water, what does that mean?
Power and water in the tube.
So you have a tube that it goes with the pod, but it has water in it, a pipe that has water, and a pipe that has power. So what can you do?
Use. I'm about to say you can have a bathroom.
Oh, no, what you can do is you can build a community in places where you can't build communities. So just imagine if you had a Hyperloop tube going to the edge of the Grand Canyon for housing, and everybody's house was on the edge of the Grand, or had a Grand Canyon view. Why don't they have that now? Because there's no water and there's no power and there's no roads. But if you build a Hyperloop tube out there, what do you now have? A community that you can have where everybody has a beautiful home. It's in a safe area, right? Because it's very remote. There's no roads to get there. There's only the Hyperloop. And so there are a lot of construction opportunities for that. Yeah, what else? Well, everything else that comes with building a community, right? You need landscapers, and you need dog walkers.
New communities in remote areas.
Yeah, but it's only, it could be a 15-minute Hyperloop right away. It could be 150 miles away, and it only takes 15 minutes to get there.
Very good point.
It takes longer to get from Summerlin to downtown in the morning.
I mean, I just wonder how many years. I mean, we're talking like 20 years, 100 years. I mean, it's interesting you say that, because there's so many spots. I mean, like I know in Arizona, they're selling land.
Think about it. How much has life changed
in 100 years?
No, not in 100 years.
Less 10.
In your lifetime.
20 years, I guess.
Okay. So internet, right? Do you remember when there was this new thing, this fad called the internet?
So I guess technically 20 years.
Yeah. Well, the question is, how long did it take to build the interstate freeway system? Like in 20 years. It took about 20 years for horse-drawn wagons to become obsolete. The horse population in the United States went from 30 million to 30,000. Maybe it was 3 million horses to 30,000 horses in 20 years. Why? Because people didn't need horses to transport things. There's a better way.
No, that's a good point.
And so,
Hyperloop communities.
Yeah. And it turns out that the cost to build the tube is equal to the cost of the planes that go back and forth. So the cost to build the tube from LA to here is equal to the cost of the planes that go from LA to here. So it's very feasible.
So the bottom line is that jobs, like for the future, that's what they should be working on, or applying for places for the future,
right?
That are trending.
And when people see that, they have an opportunity to work for the boring company. Do you think that changes your perspective of life? If you're a guy in prison and you're thinking, this is my life. I've been to jail 1,000,000 times. I've been to prison a few times. I don't really see a lot of opportunity for my future. Now you get them in something like this. It's a ground floor opportunity. Everybody they know is like, wow, can you hook me up at there? Can I get a job there? Now all of a sudden you're a guy who's got something that other people don't have, right?
All right, so long story short, anyone that is in prison that basically is expiring, or locally basically, if they're eligible for parole, they can contact Novum, you and yourself, to basically find out the next steps in general. And normally it costs some money for the programs. How are people basically getting money we mentioned family, or if they have money, how does that work, that portion of it? And then what's your main phone number and contact? How do you want people to contact you? Because most of these people are probably going to be listening it's kind of interesting. How do we get, this is a new audio podcast. Can we get audio? Can we get video into the prisons where this can be shared? If they're watching TV, how do we get something like this that's audio? I mean, it has to be approved or?
Well, to the question of,
We have to come up with prison podcast.
well, that would be a good thing. That's going to take 1,000,000 years, though. But the
Write that one down.
so the question,
Don't touch GoDaddy.
the question.
Go ahead.
So, I think the kind of the soundbite for people is, do you know somebody in prison? Question mark. We can help.
Mm-hmm.
How do people from prison pay to come to our program? They rob a store. That's how they do it.
That's amazing because there's a lot of stores.
Yeah, right.
And you can go out in Las Vegas and just rob a store, and then you can pay for your admission.
So no, but it turns out that
Do not do
there's
that.
a lot of don't do that. That was actually a joke that's going to be edited out. So a lot of families want to support their kids.
Got it.
And when I say kids, some of them are like, we have women that are like in their 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, my son is 65 and I need to help him. But they don't know how to help them. They don't have a place that can actually provide all of the things they did.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to have their son or daughter do the thing that they've done several other times before that didn't work. And it's like, for a lot of families, it's like, we need a new start.
Okay. So basically, you can contact Novum U. What's your main? What's the main number?
The main number is 765-537-8480.
Okay. So 765-537-8480 is the main number if they want to call family members to get people into the program. And then you also have a progressive web app, which I heard is, Novum-U.com.
Correct.
What can people do on that app?
Oh,
So if
wow.
someone goes into the domain and they're friends and family and they want to get someone right now, you have some different program. Tell me a little.
Yeah, so this is you call it a progressive app?
Progressive web app.
Progressive web app. So we met this guy named Greg Yeller, who's got a company called Video Mobile. Is that what it's called?
I think so.
And basically has everything that you need in a simple way to get it. So it's great for prospective people. So when people call, say my son's in prison, I say, okay, great, what's your phone number, your cell phone number? I'm going to send you this little app. They click on it, and then it has everything they could possibly want to know about what we do. For our students, we're able to have all of the tools that they will need on there in one handy place. So, for example, one of the rules is when you're on parole, anytime you move, you have to go down to the police station and re-register. You have to tell them where you live, which if you're out on your own, that's kind of hard. But on our phone, we have the app on the phone, we have a little button that is Las Vegas Metro Police. You click on that and it takes you to the place you go to make a reservation so you can go down and register where you now live. And then other resources there. So there's this thing called Las Vegas Legal Network that is a great way for people to have legal help when they need it. And that's an important thing for people coming out of prison.
Okay. So the bottom line is, if any listeners out there that watch the video, and over the next 30 days, I'm sure that this video will go viral in different Facebook groups. Specifically, I know there's a lot of prison Facebook groups of pen pals and programs. But if anybody wants to help a family member that's in prison, I know that you have different books and homeworks and different things. So if you want to basically help anyone that's in prison, and then especially getting out of prison, it works both ways. I mean, you help them while they're in prison, help them when they come out, or at least be prepared, and also giving them, I guess emotionally positive spirit that there is a future when they come out. They could start working on it today by using your homework and the assignment and your books that you can send into the prison, and then when they come out, they have an opportunity in the future, which I think is so important. And so again, you have the app Novum-U.com.
Correct.
And they have the phone number to call you as well. And then the bottom line is, if anyone wants to get some help, is there anything else? We got like 2-3 minutes left. Anything else that you want to share basically to the listeners, especially friends and family? It'd be great to find out. We really need to work on how do we get the audio or the video maybe into the prisons. It'd be great to find out. I mean, I know you have to get some approvals, but it'd be interesting.
Well, it would always be good to have instructional videos in the prison. That's hard. I think the the best thing is what you're doing here with your podcast, and to share it with the people who can support the people in prison when they're getting out. Because, most people who have loved ones in prison don't want them to go back. They want them to move forward, but they don't know how to help. And so what you're doing here is really, I think in some ways, more important than what we do, because if people don't know about what we do, nobody's going to do it. So the podcast and the studio and all of the things, the hot technology here, all of this stuff is vital to helping people move forward, to spread the word of there is a way to move forward in life.
Absolutely. Again, I commend you for all the work that you do. And again, my goal is to help anyone in general. So anyone that with Novum U, if there's, or anybody that's listening out there, the whole concept of the problem solver is me being, retired police officer, has resources like yourself where I can call you and text you and, have somebody picked up on an Uber and basically drive them to your office because they need help, or they're sleeping homeless in a car, or whatever it may be. I mean, education is so important. So I want to put my number out there as well to people. If anyone needs help, the Problem Solver has an app as well, the progressive web app called the problemsolver.vegas, which is basically an app where it has all kinds of different resources, and they can get connections to jobs, employment, housing, school, all kinds of different programs. I love dealing with problems. I don't charge any money. I'm just doing this to give back. I was a police officer for 17 years, so I want to basically help people, and I feel good at night when I go to sleep knowing that I've helped several different people. I do have a network of different law firms that I work with. Some will do things pro bono, some free. So I'm basically trying to find the right attorney to help people, but sometimes you don't need an attorney. You need education or school or different people like yourself that are running these great programs in Las Vegas. So I commend anyone that basically wants to be a part of the program and get some help with you to call, to reach out so we can get some help in general. Any last thing before we go? Again, I think we got some great information. You got Next Step program. You got New Track. We have the Novum U basically program helping people. I think we've covered most of it. Is there anything that we're missing that we want to get this information out?
I just want to say again, thank you, Dave, and we're here to support the Problem Solver in any way that we can. Anybody that you come across that needs help, if we can help them, we're here to help them.
Great. Well, I am David Kohlmeyer, the Problem Solver, and if I can help anybody in the Las Vegas community or anywhere in the United States, you can contact myself at 702-400-7474. Again, David Kohlmeyer, the Problem Solver, 702-400-7474. You can text, call anytime, any problem. Go on to the progressive web app, theproblemsolver.vegas. Whatever I can do to help, I'm here for you. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you, Edward, for being on the show. And be safe, and I'll see you next week.